The best players are going head-to-head this weekend, so let's rank them and give my predictions on who I think is going to win. Let's start this off with teams who could easily be in the top 10, but for the sake of predictions, I'm not going to put them there. The first honorable mention will be MALIBUCA and MERSTACH. These guys have played amazingly in the Cash Cups, and pre-FNCS, I think MALIBUCA was absolutely the MVP of the season. However, now their drop spot is contested by Gabix and Schmecki, alongside TaySon Putrick, who've been fighting over this entire place for, well, been all through the qualifiers, all through the semis. This basically just happened for the last couple of weeks, and MALIBUCA and MERSTACH weren't able to really win this off spawn consistently enough when they were fighting one of the two. However, every game they got off spawn, they did really, really well. So I do think these guys could make it into the top 10, but for that reason, I'm not going to put them in my top 10. The next is going to be CHAPIX and SETTY. Similarly, I don't think CHAPIX and SETTY have necessarily been as consistent as I would like to have seen from them. They really haven't found a home and a drop spot that they can stay at. They've moved around the map tournament after tournament. For the finals, they've decided to go to the south side of Sleepy Sounds, which is actually going to be contested by Vino and Joe. There is absolutely not enough loot here off spawn. Both these teams are really good off spawn fighters, but again, I just don't think that either of these is going to be super consistent to get up into a top 10. Next is going to be NOAHREYLI and AQUA. One of my favorite duos, definitely a team who has a soft place in my heart. But again, these guys just really haven't been playing that well, in all honesty. In the Cash Cups, they haven't made a single one of the finals. Both the qualifiers, they just weren't good because they were fighting off spawn a ton. And when they got to endgame, they didn't really look like themselves. They didn't look like a coordinated duo. They just didn't really have what seemed to be an FNCS winning performance in them. I do think they could do really well if they're on point on game day, but we just really haven't seen that this season. And the final team is going to be KIRYACHE and STORMYRITE. These guys are contested off spawn in Logjam by Coop and Frank. But I think these guys are a little bit demotivated with the current season. So I think they're going to be a bit of a loose cannon. They're going to be jumping into players' boxes, being overly aggressive. So I think this playstyle could be either really successful, where they could go into the top 10, or it could be disastrous for them, where they don't come in top 10 at all. Regardless, definitely a team I'm supporting, in particularly STORMYRITE right now, playing from Ukraine with the obvious horrible situation going on over there. So all the best to him, and I do hope they succeed. All right, let's go into my actual top 10 predictions. Number 10 is going to be REFSGAARD and SKRAAM. This team has proven that they can perform in set lobby environments against the best of the best teams. In Qualifier 1, they only just didn't qualify because they missed out on a tiebreaker, as they didn't have their victory royale. They look super solid outside of that. I don't think these are a top 5 team, but I think every single set lobby they're playing, they're basically coming around that 10th place mark. So for me, you got to put them in 10th yet again here. In number 9, I'm going to go with ANDLEX and XWEEZ. Now, ANDLEX and XWEEZ this season have been really interesting. ANDLEX at the start of the season was playing with 4ZR. That didn't work at all because 4ZR is basically just playing Valorant. When they split and ANDLEX and XWEEZ got together, they won the first Cash Cup that they started to play together. They've been really good in Cash Cup since, but in FNCS, they haven't actually really been as strong. Now, the reason for this is, honestly, they sucked off spawn really badly in Condo Canyon. They were going up against Hookah and Zeston, who were dominating that drop spot. There was also other teams contesting there. They just didn't look very strong, in all honesty, in the early game. However, the finals, they don't need to worry about that because Hookah and Zeston has moved over to Coney. And the only team they have to worry about in their drop spot is VADEAL and REZON. Now, yes, very scary team to worry about. However, VADEAL and REZON are claiming such a large area in the drop spot that I'm not entirely convinced that these two are going to fight it off every game. I think towards the later half, we're going to see that. But again, I think ANDLEX and XWEEZ would definitely kind of get a lot of good games out of this drop spot if they manage not to engage. We'll see if that actually happens or not. In at number 8, I'm going to go with Reifla and Marine. Now, these guys won the first qualifier. They are landing over to the Butter Barn split in the southwest of the map. Completely uncontested. They have this whole area to themselves, which also includes 2 Spider-Men. Now, one of the reasons I'm not that worried about these guys is that they were fragging out in Qualifier 1. These guys actually had the highest average eliminations of 4.83 of any team in any of the qualifiers or any of the semifinals as well. Now, a lot of this was also in the mid-game. They were always going into moving zones with a bunch of eliminations. Yes, they were contested that time, so they got a bunch of them off spawn, but the mid-game was really strong. On top of that, because they both land at the Spider-Man's web shooters, they also have great solo clutch potentials. In that qualifier that they won, a lot of it was solo, in all honesty for you. Whether it was Marine being up or if it was Reifla being up, there was just a ton of solo clutches going on in there. And when they were both together, they could both stagger really effectively using the Spider-Man's web shooters, get to the front side zone, pick up a ton more eliminations, pick up a ton of refreshes. They just seem like a really, really solid duo throughout the qualifier, and I think given that they have this same setup again, I think they could do really well. In at number 7, I'm going to go with JANNISZ and VORTEX. Now, JANNISZ is now a player who has made 12 out of 13 FNCS finals, one of 5 players. Actually, Andalex and XQueasy both are 2 of those other players as well. I've always found this duo very interesting as they're basically nemesises from back in Chapter 2, Season 6, where they were contesting each other at Craggy Cliffs, and obviously JANNISZ CHAPIX at the time came out on top. But now they have this really experienced player of JANNISZ teaming up with VORTEX, who's this incredible fragger, and I think this duo works really well when it works. The problem is that I see JANNISZ as a little bit of a loose cannon in that phrase, because his mentality is a little bit hit or miss. In Qualifier 1, they didn't get into one of the games, and it basically ruined their entire tournament, JANNISZ even saying himself that his mentality was shot after that. When it comes to Qualifier number 2, they were kind of having a bunch of bad games. They're not really that good at South Zones in particular, because there's not as many players to get Surge on from their drop spot of Greasy Grove. And I think coming into the final game, they just had a who cares attitude, and they popped off with a 10 elimination victory royale. So what that tells me personally is the fact that if they have the confidence and if they feel good, they're going to play really well. They have that potential to absolutely frag out 10 eliminations, pick up a victory royale as well. However, if they don't have their mentality in check, like, it's just going to continue to go downhill for them. So I really hope these guys do well. Big fan of both of these players. I think these guys could easily win, but I also think they could come pretty low down on the leaderboards as well. Coming in at number 6, we're going to go with BENJYFISHY and MRSAVAGE. I want these guys to win, right? That's it. Straight up, I want these guys to win. I want these guys to have that FNCS title. I want them to hold the pickaxes, but I'm going to put them in 6th right now. They look super solid. I think one of the best fragging teams right now. Their chemistry is absolutely unmatched when it comes to endgame right now. They're always beside each other. They're super able to shadow each other, pick up easy eliminations on players. Like, if you run into these guys in an endgame situation, you're just losing. They're getting your materials, they're getting the points, and they're going to keep on moving through. My only slight concern is the fact that now in their drop spot of Tilted Towers, they have 2 other very good teams. They have Kinzel Deceptos, who they kind of ran over a bunch in Qualifier number 2. Now they also have DKS and Bad Sniper, though, who are looking to contest, I think, the exact same drops as them, which is main and also hotel. So I think the strategies are going to potentially overlap, and there could be a lot of messiness in the early game. And if they land kind of to the south away, that's going to cut off a big chunk of the loot. And then for Benji and Savage, they have kind of 2 teams surrounding them, and they have to figure out what to do about Surge there. So the off spawn is going to be very, very interesting in my eyes for Tilted Towers. And if one team can capitalize on this, they can do really, really well. But DKS and Bad Sniper have historically in drop spots, I don't want to say grief, that's not the right word, but fights have drawn out a long, long time and have historically not gone so well for either them or the team contesting them. More for Bad Sniper, not as much with DKS. In at number 5, I'm going with REZON and VADEAL. Now, obviously, I talked about their off-spawn situation with Andalex and XQueasy. It seems like, in all honesty, these guys just have the confidence coming into it. We've already seen on the social media, REZON is trying to claim and just an unbelievable amount of loot off spawn, almost the entire of Condo Canyon alongside the Spider-Man's web shooters at that side. And I think if they're able to get the Spider-Man's web shooters, this could be really big for them, because when I've watched a bunch of their end games, they're messy, and I mean very messy. Now, these two have always been messy in end games, even, you know, going back to the times when they've been playing with NOAHREYLI. It's like height, or when they don't get it, it's kind of just no strategy, no dead side rotations, no solid tarp to work from. They're just relying on their pure fragging abilities. So if they have the Spider-Mans, at least they can use that effectively to get ahead, stagger, and then utilize their incredible fragging abilities to pick up a bunch of refreshes from that point, or just take height with it at the same time. In the Cash Cups, these guys have fragged almost more than any other team. They were the 2nd highest Cash Cup fragging team. But when it comes to the FNCS so far, interestingly enough, in the top 10, they actually had the lowest amount of average eliminations from their qualification. So I am a little bit concerned that in an FNCS situation, they won't frag as much, but we will see. These guys are kind of known for just big pop-off games, so even if they have a couple bad ones off spawn, I wouldn't be too surprised to see them then have a massive game, clutch up with like double-digit eliminations. So at number 4, I'm going PINQ and NOAHREYLI. And to be honest, from here on up in the predictions, I think any of these guys could easily take away and win the entire tournament. In my eyes, PINQ and NOAHREYLI are just a finals level team, or a set lobby level of team. When it comes to the Cash Cups that they've played, in 2 of the 3 Cash Cups, they've won 2 of the 6 games. When it comes to the qualifier that they actually qualified through and placed first in, qualifier number 2, they won 2 of the games in there again. These guys are game winners. Now, the only concern I have about this is the fact that most of the times when they've done well and picked up a bunch of wins is times when either QUEASY and Hen haven't done well, or there are times when they haven't been in the lobby. So there's definitely going to be a huge battle for high ground, as I definitely think QUEASY and Hen alongside PINQ and NOAHREYLI are like the two most dominant height teams, in particular when you look at kind of AQUA and NOAHREYLI not performing as well in FNCS. So I think these are the two main teams going head to head. So if Hen and QUEASY are having a really good day, we could see that being trouble for PINQ and NOAHREYLI. But I think with the setup they have at the Llama Homestead, the drop spot they have, with the experience they have, with the coaching from BloodX, and the mental coaching from Always Pampy, I think these guys are going to be more prepared than any other team coming into this lobby. With a ton of experience, with a ton of comfortability, with the great setup already down for them, I think these guys definitely have a huge potential to win, but they're in fourth for me for now. And at number 3, I'm going to go with Thomas and TaySon, the most FNCS winning player. Now, if there's one thing that you can say about TaySon, it's when it comes to finals, he performs. It almost doesn't matter what season it is, he is gonna do unbelievable in a finals situation. There's been previous seasons where in the qualifiers, he's really not looked that great. And I look back to Chapter 2, Season 7, when he was playing with Nate and 4ZR. Horrible in the qualifiers. The start of the season just wasn't really going that well either. But then when it comes to semifinals, they absolutely dominated and then placed 3rd overall. And I think that's kind of a similar situation we're seeing here with TaySon and Thomas HD, is the fact that they've not looked as strong throughout the qualifiers and the Cash Cups prior to that as well. But you give them some good loot in the semifinals, okay, they're popping off, they're winning games, they're qualifying through. I still don't think we've seen their best performances yet by any means. And I'm thinking, in my eyes, that's probably going to be saved for the finals when it actually matters. And at number 2, I'm going Cami and TEEQ. Now, Cami and TEEQ have just been far too good. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's third-party tournaments, Cash Cups, solo, dual Cash Cups, that is, FNCS, like, they have just been on point. They're showing their dominance. They're technically the current reigning FNCS champions, if you're not including Grand Royale, because they won the Chapter 2 Season 8. And then, even if we start to introduce the Grand Royale into that, they placed 2nd there too. They have a history of performing extremely well in finals environments. They're looking super strong. They have their Cami split this season lined up again. And it's like these guys are basically just the opposite of REZON and VADEAL in my eyes. When you get them to endgame with good materials, they're going to make sure they go deep. They're not necessarily going to go fragging as such, but they're always going to put themselves into good position, either on dead side of zone, tanking zones to get into good positions, being on good layers. It doesn't matter. They're nearly always in a good position. They're also one of really the only 2 good low ground teams in my eyes, Floki and Clement being the other one, but the off-spawn situation with Floki and Clement, I'm not as confident in predicting them doing so well. So one of the only good low ground teams going to be that should be consistently into almost every end game. These guys are going to just be set up for absolute success. And my prediction to win, QUEASY and Hen. Now, QUEASY and Hen have won a ton of third-party events. They've just won the Week 6 Cash Cup. They placed 2nd on NA East in the same time as well. They're both FNCS champions as it is from different seasons. Chapter 2 Season 7 from QUEASY, Chapter 2 Season 5, and then just Grand Royale last season for Hen. And I really like the dynamic of this duo as well, where you have QUEASY, who's historically been a player who's almost been like a little bit too safe, and you have Hen, who's a bit of a loose cannon, who basically will just jump in boxes a little bit too aggressively at the same time. So it kind of balances things out a little bit. Watching back through the VODs, there's always some absolutely hilarious clips of QUEASY just shouting at Hen to try and get his attention and try not make him tunnel vision on jumping in a box. But when they have that all locked and lined up, you've got the big brain from QUEASY, and you're packing a ton of firepower with Hen combined with this. And it is a dangerous duo. They are the number 1 height team in the lobby. If they are in the lobby and they're not on height at some point during the game, something's gone horribly wrong. During the qualifiers, I think of 4 of the 6 games, they were on high ground at some point. And this has always been QUEASY's playstyle, and I think it works really well into Hen's playstyle as well. As if you think back to some of his teams where he's been successful with like Hen, JANNISZ, and CHAPIX, they were a team who were also very proficient at high ground. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot. Please subscribe if you aren't already. Peace.